Have you ever felt like you're the victim of your circumstances or the puppet of your circumstances, almost like life is happening to you rather than for you? And so today I'm going to share my personal story of how I came to understand this truth of how we have the power to deliberately create our reality and how you can do the same thing with yourself. So I'm going to start off by mentioning the Kundalini awakening that I had. I'm absolutely in no way saying that for this stuff to work, you have to have a Kundalini awakening. I'm also not saying that a Kundalini awakening is something special or something unique to me, because that's complete BS. It's a natural part of human evolution. And so in terms of this video, I'm going to talk about an epiphany that happened to me. And the reason why I'm sharing the Kundalini awakening is because that's actually what created this epiphany, this automatic shift in reality that happened for me. And so in the simplest forms, when I talk about Kundalini in terms of manifestation, not necessarily the nature of finding out the truth of nature, but the dynamism of Kundalini, that's what it is. It is a primordial energy that awakens in the base of your spine. And it's the same energy that's in tune with all the laws of nature. So that creative intelligence is what I'm talking about. So when we think about how the sun rises, the same natural laws and the laws of nature that make sure that the planets, they stay in orbit. The same laws of nature that make sure that in the spring, the grass grows, and in the fall, the leaves fall off the tree. It's also the same thing within you that helps you digest your breakfast automatically. And so what I'm talking about is that infinite intelligence, that creative intelligence, those laws of nature that are automatic. And so what happens with the Kundalini awakening is that primordial energy wakes up within inside of you, and you become a little bit further in tune, a little bit more dynamism is established, putting you in the flow of all the laws of nature. And so when I had my Kundalini awakening, this primordial energy that woke up in the base of my spine, I had a really powerful epiphany that really changed my perspective. It changed my paradigm of how I viewed the world. And how I would describe an epiphany is it's a realization that arrives in the brain, and it doesn't happen through the thinking brain. So it comes through the brain, but not to the brain, so you're not actually thinking. And generally it happens when we're doing something else and not deliberately using the thinking mind. A great analogy for that would be how Albert Einstein came up with E equals mc squared. Whether or not the story is true, but one of the stories is that he was working on the equation energy equals matter and working on it for a very, very long time. And one night he was very frustrated and he just put down his pen and he's like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna forget about this equation. And so he went for the walk, and during that walk, he had this lightning bolt in his mind and seeing the mathematical equation, and he thought, no way, energy equals matter, that can't be. He even saw the mathematical equation, and then he went back home and he wrote it out and the math worked. And so that's how I would describe an epiphany. And so for me, I had that awakening that I mentioned, and I was going through kind of a deep, a bit of deep suffering. And I remember asking my girlfriend to leave, and I was in a meditation. So I closed my eyes and I went through the normal meditation process that I was going through. And in an instant, I saw this flash, just whew, and I opened my eyes and I said, holy shit, my thoughts become things. I'm not the victim of circumstance. I am the creator of my reality. And I can't put it into words. I knew that to be true within every cell within my body. And again, it wasn't something that I was thinking about. It came into my mind and I realized it in my brain, but I wasn't thinking it into being. And so that was such a deep shift in my reality, and I knew it to be true within every cell of my body. What was really fascinating was that the very next day I had a doctor's appointment, and I remember getting up to go to the doctor's appointment, and as I stepped out into the street, I could hear birds chirping and they sounded different. I was looking at the people walking down the street and they looked different. And even the way that I was hearing things and smelling things, everything seemed so different. And there was this deep shift in my perception, this shift in my paradigm. And I think what was really interesting was that I had this temporary buzzing going on in my brain. And at the time I was really, really confused as to what it was. And then I did a little research years later. And I guess when your deep-seated beliefs and your paradigm, and paradigm is really how you view the world, when a deep-seated belief shifts, well, it creates these neurological shifts within the brain, and it creates these new neural pathways, so these new highways in the brain. And so what happened with me was that all the old highway of thinking about being a victim, not realizing that 95% of the same thoughts I had over and over and over were creating this vicious cycle. Well, that neural pathway started to form some trees on it, the dirt, the grass, and that paved highway was starting to melt away and get covered up. And a new neural pathway that, hey, my thoughts become things, I'm not a victim of circumstance, I'm the creator of my reality. With that new neural pathway was getting deep, deep grooves within my brain. And so that vicious cycle of that I was repeating every single day was changing, and it was changing very rapidly. And I could feel that buzzing in my brain. So even though I had this profound epiphany, this profound knowing, there's time where I find myself falling back into victim consciousness, falling back into the same old patterns of negative thinking that, hey, the world happens to me and all the shit that's happening is terrible and, poor me, and really getting sucked up into the negativity. And so over the years, I've posed that question, where do our thoughts actually come from? Where do yours and my thoughts come from? And one of the things I learned in my master's in consciousness and human potential from Maharishi International University is that program postulates that the brain is actually a receiver, not just a generator of thoughts. And so what that means is that there is a collective consciousness, there is a collective mind, as well as an individual consciousness and an individual mind. And so in particular, recently, from like January to just about 2 weeks ago, I found myself slipping really deeply into victim consciousness, really kind of marinating in fear. And at work, there are a lot of people getting fired. In every meeting, we're talking about downsizing, about firing people. In every email, it's about, hey, folks are getting fired. You could get fired. And when I turn on the news, it's about all this fear-based collective consciousness mind of fear. And I've really found myself just getting sucked away into this collective mind, into this collective fear, all the while forgetting that I have this internal receiver, and my own receiver has been dimmed. Again, the brain is a receiver of thoughts and not just the generator of thought. And so there's a connection between what's going on in the collective mind versus what's going on in our mind. And I've just been so tuned into this collective fear up until about 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, I decided to join a silent meditation retreat for 3 days over a long weekend. And at this retreat, I shut off the phone. I didn't watch a movie. All electronics, shut that crap off, which was actually hard, to be honest. It's tough to sit there with no electronics. And I also really just sat there in silence. So again, a silent meditation where I shut out the outside world and did a lot of series of meditations with a group as well as mindful walking. And what was interesting was that when I returned back home and back to work, I instantaneously had almost a different frequency, a different tune. And rather than tuning into that frequency of collective fear, I found myself going back into meditation a little bit more deeply and making sure I'm doing that every single day and attuning to my own individual mind, to my own individual consciousness and tapping within. And so I've been a lot more resilient and a lot more restricted from that fear that's been outside of myself that has absolutely been impacting my negative thinking. And so individual consciousness, our individual mind, is absolutely continual work. There's layers to the onion. And so although I had this deep epiphany, these new neural pathways that were created, there's layers to the onion. And so I came to understand in this epiphany that my thoughts become things. I'm not a victim of circumstance. I'm the creator of my reality. Boom. Wow. That's amazing. But to really live an inner vision life requires constant inner exercise the same way we go to the gym and we crush our muscles and we grow our muscles. And so in order to truly unlock the reality that you want, the reality that you deserve, we need to tap into the source. We need to tap into that internal reservoir of peace, that creative intelligence, the home of all the laws of nature, the absolute, the pure consciousness. We have to go within. And so I invite you to go ahead and brighten your own receiver and just take 5 simple minutes a day. Close your mind and close your eyes and just go inward. There's no right or wrong way to meditate, and make sure that you touch that internal reservoir of inner peace so that you can have a more shining, bright light. And secondly, I invite you to protect your mind, to protect your individual consciousness. So rather than tuning into the collective consciousness of fear, and there's obviously a lot of fear, make sure that we're super careful about what we tune into and what we let into our mind, or you're going to end up like me and getting sucked into the fear. And so if you found this video helpful and you liked it and you want to learn more about Inner Vision Life, go ahead and like and subscribe.